everybody, to another episode of Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom podcast.
Hi,
Give a little round of applause. We're here, another episode. I've been loving this. I said this is...
Am I glowing today, though?
You are glowing. Why? Why are you glowing?
Because my son got me a facial today.
I know that's right.
Yes.
You better show it off, the glistening skin.
That's right.
I hope that was my gift for you, so that way if things went awry with our guest today about...
I know. I think that's what it was.
I try to butter you up, so
you
that
tried
way...
to be my favorite today. Bribery.
Yeah, no, literally. We have on today Dr. Alex Hamlet. She is a clinical psychologist, specializes in young adults, children, talking about the family dynamics of growing up with like a favorite child and a parent to child relationship, which I thought was super fun because Barb swears she don't have a favorite kid. She swears she doesn't have a favorite kid.
I do not have a favorite child. I love both my children separately.
She does. I will say, like, there's people that we know that like moms sometimes
blatant.
Yeah, like it's like straight up out there, and that like they're really in your face, like acknowledging that they have like a favorite kid. But I will say you are very unbiased. Like, I think with you come to me for a certain reason and you go to Brett for a certain reason. Like when you just called me a couple of days ago and having a midlife crisis breakdown where you were contemplating your whole life's purpose of what was happening, what you're doing for the rest of your life, where I have to talk to you. I'm like, girl, she's like, you would have thought you were like on your deathbed, ready to tap out any minute, and the world before you was over. Like, I'm like, you literally called me.
I called and I was like,
how she's going to be financially successful when she's retired, doesn't want to work, and who's going to take care of her?
Me?
Who's going to wipe her ass when she
can't
anymore?
Am I going to have this certain amount of money by the time I'm this to live? And I made it seem like I only had a couple of years.
I'm like, she just turned her birthday. She just turned 56. And you're not going to say, hey, you be proud of that. That's a really young age. And she was talking like, I mean, I'm like, what the hell is going? I'm like,
I was signing the retirement papers tomorrow.
Like, I thought she was on the side of the road for like literally like, palm to face, like in the steering wheel. I'm like, what is happening? And, I had to pull you in a little bit.
I was spiraling.
You were 100%. You were down the drain at that point. You weren't even spiraling. You were down the drain.
I don't know what got into me. I just started thinking like elderly-ish.
Well, it was almost like you thought that like nobody in this world was going to take care of you and look after you. And I'm like, look, we're making progress in our lives. I mean, we got this podcast. Let's hope that, hey, this could be Barb's retirement, people. Tune in and listen.
Come on, people. You hear me? I was spiraling.
Yeah, please help her out. Just somebody listen to
help
this.
Help a girl out.
But I thought it was very valid that you felt that way. And it was nice that you could open up and talk about that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But you were jumping
and you gave me 5 minutes.
Yeah, I tried to make it 3, but yeah, I was like, all right, pump the brakes here. I think that is a very valid emotion that you were feeling. But I said it's funny because like, I'll do the same to you in return. And I said, like, that's how you are with your kids. Like, if you want to indulge in the ice cream, but you've been complaining to me that you don't like the way that you look, I'm going to say, don't eat it, and Brett's going to say, yeah, mom, you should go back Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, So I think it's like, you got to depend on the circumstance of what you want to hear. And actually, I take that back. You should always indulge into any food that finds you joy, just not into an excessive amount. So we're trying to be healthy here with our eating.
I agree with that. Yes.
But I think you have done a very healthy way of navigating who is who.
Thank you.
And making sure that you don't push on any unhealthy habits that were enforced on you in your household.
Yes.
And I've
always made sure to make, like, that was a goal for me to make sure, because I've always felt like that created animosity towards siblings. And I never wanted my children to have that. I always wanted you and Brett to be close, or even before I had kids, I always was like, my point will always make sure that my children are close. Like I don't want to do anything to ruin that relationship between siblings.
Do I think you baby Brett more than me? Yeah, but we're gonna let that
That
be.
is, sure, John.
I'm just talking facts. So
Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh.
some people need more coddling than others, and it's okay. Just own it. Own it.
At moments, some need more coddling than others. In their moment, I coddle who needs to be coddled.
Yes, and
I probably should only be like, you got 5 minutes. Moving on.
I don't know. The last couple of phone calls I've gotten, it's been quite the opposite. Well, with that being
my moment of being coddled.
yeah, you are. You need a bassinet baby. That's what you need. With that being said, I think Dr. Alex is the best person that we could have on today, given
I agree.
the last couple phone calls that we've had. So
Looking forward to meeting her and listening and seeing her points of view.
Absolutely. So with that being said, welcome, Dr. Alex. We are so excited for our guest today. We have Dr. Alexandra Hamlet. She is a clinical psychologist. She's got the degrees behind her that my mom pointed out. We were like, put some respect on her name.
I'm a clinical psychologist that specializes in working with teens, young adults, and family dynamics as they come up, but also I specialize in helping an individual understand how they cope and how that might play a role into also the dynamics of parents and family. A lot of my patients often come in, struggling with the dynamics of them and a parent. And it could be, it's not fair how I'm being treated. In isolation, it's not how fair I'm being treated compared to my sibling. So it can be more broad than specific favoritism, but definitely like I'm noticing something's off here. And I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's them. I don't know if it's a combo. I often try and help and intervene, but like it is the parent. That's when there's a lot of different therapeutic work that I would do of like, how do you protect? How do you have boundaries? How do you have other models in your life that are more fair and balanced and loving?
I don't care what anyone says, right? Like my mom will say to this day and age, she does not have a favorite child. But like statistically, as you know, Dr. Alex, like the patients you see, like that is not always the case. It's like 70 to 74% of like parents. I love that I have like my notepad in front of me as I'm making sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I came prepared with the receipts, the stats. That 70 to 74% of parents say that they show some type of preferential treatment to one child over the other.
I mean, Kris Jenner blatantly says Kim Kardashian is her favorite. Do you know what I mean? Like, right?
But you know what?
Not good to say.
She also says that Kylie is her favorite, and like it just depends on the scene. Yes. And who I really think is her favorite is, I don't know. I mean, I think I get confused because they're all making her look pretty good. So
I mean, I was gonna say whichever one is making her the most money that day, I think would be probably her favorite. Most parents won't admit to this, playing favorites publicly. But according to ifstudies.org, shout out to them, 45% of women and 35% of men say their parents have a favorite child. So
that's higher than I thought too.
And that 25% that does not have one.
And clearly Paul believes you.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I did get her to do a podcast with me, so that has to mean something, right? For us, like why I think this is a conversation to be had, because, like in our household, I have a younger brother, it's myself and my mom. And I do feel like my mom has always been really great in terms of balancing the best of both worlds. But there are times where obviously like you get treated a certain way because they know, like a parent knows you can withstand something maybe a little bit more than your sibling, right? Or, they can talk to you one way because you could take it, but maybe the other one can't. So I would say that has always been our relationship where it's like.
Well, I also always say I have 2 children, 2 different personalities, 2 different ways to treat them in certain situations, or do you know what I mean? How to coddle them at certain times, how to be strong to them at certain times, but they're two very individuals. So I favored them in their individuality, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, that is the most adaptive type of parenting, right? To consider that you're not a parent to just your kids, you're a parent to each individually, and you adapt your style accordingly.
Have you studied a lot about this specific subject, and how common is it for like people to, learn this or find out about this?
I will say that I think any given child can bring out certain things that are different in their parent. Right. And sometimes it's in alignment, right? And it's like, oh, this is actually a quality that we both value. And it's like, we're jiving. And there are other times where the qualities actually bring out more discord. And so it really, I think about it as like a bidirectional relationship situation. And so if you have one child that is exhibiting more of those positive qualities or qualities that you value more in any given situation, over time, who wouldn't like that more? And what that can do is it can make the other child like withhold even more of any of the positives that they were doing. Because they're like, oh, no, clearly there's more praise here for the other person. So I think it can really depend too on what one child is witnessing and how aware they are of maybe some competitiveness, and maybe how aware they are that like, well, my sibling's doing something right. I feel like I'm going to cower and do even less of what works for me and my parent.
So you're saying it's like almost a competitiveness of personalities for a parent to go towards at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, if one child is, has more alignment in terms of temperament and values with the opposite parent, like it can also depend on the parent. For example, I get along better with my dad because we have more shared similarities and we like bring that out in each other more, whereas my mom and I have more differences. And so, it's harder for us to kind of connect. And then when I see that my sister and my mom, who are like more similar, they're jiving, I'm going to be even more withholding of trying with my mom, and I'm going to focus more on my dad.
Hey, Dr. Alex, do you see, patients or people that, like if there's siblings with just one parent in the household?
So it's a really interesting question.
The way she said that, I was like, uh-oh, we're about to get it. She was like, yes.
I know. Here it goes.
If it's a genuine, like, one parent household, meaning there's no help that the person is getting, even if it's not from another parent, but like other, role models or family members that come in and really act as a second parent. What can happen is that one parent, their personality kind of can range even more, not because that's what's natural, but because they're trying to be everything. If we think about it that way, possibly, then it's a little bit more the Wild West. There's more that maybe each child can map onto, or maybe more that they're not mapping onto. And like, because of there's no genetic real other parent that like they can kind of go to instead when they're not feeling as understood. Right. And so it can be really hard.
What if you're in a 2-parent home, but the one parent is the stronger parent, handles everything, discipline, the other parent is there, but not there, That's
a really, really good question, because that happens so often, right?
So that's kind of how we grew up, to be honest.
Yeah.
It can mean that that one parent has even more closeness to each of their kids in the moments that are those, because there's more opportunity. But it can also mean that the parent is also so taxed with holding it all that there's less of a likelihood that those positive like vibes, even if the child has those same qualities as the parent, that they would connect as much, because if a sibling or if a child is giving off those positive vibes that like really the parent has too, but they're just too goddamn tired or stressed to show it, right? Then that like it could equally be more rewarding and also more challenging to really connect, right? And then, as a kid, like my dad was not involved. And, even though I probably thought in my head that I was closer to him because those positive vibes were there, but looking back, it was superficial.
Yeah.
It really can depend so much on like the variables in the situation. I have a question though, like this idea of favorites. Is it possible that it's not necessarily like this person, like this child of mine is by far overall my favorite? Or is it like here are these like areas where I prefer?
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think 2 children, 2 personalities. I like some things in them and I don't like some things in them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Right back at you too. Right back at you.
do you know what I mean? So I think you balance. I speak for myself. I think I try to balance what the situation is or what we're doing, or if there is something going on, I try to balance what child needs what. I might not do that all the time correctly, but I try. It's not favoritism. I don't feel like it's favoritism. I feel what that child needs in that moment.
I get where she's coming from in the sense, to me, I view it always as like a friend, right? Like when you want to go and like, fuck up the night, you're going to call XYZ. When you want to go and get like good Mexican food and, have some deep conversation, you're going to call that friend. If you want a spa day, you're going to call that friend. That's how I kind of view it. But Dr. Alex, you can also, step in and tell me if that's inaccurate or not.
I think that's how I view it too. And I do wonder if we're being, totally honest here, if it's possible to sum up like all of those positives and have a winner. I don't know. I think it's so complicated, but I wonder if some people believe that it is possible to be like, my favorite.
I mean, I would say growing up, I could sit and say I was the favorite. Like I can say that. Do you know what I mean? I just, with my family dynamics, I know, and my dad will just say little things that I'm like, oh, that's his way of saying I'm the favorite. And I'm
so glad you shared that, because it's a way different view, right, than what we were initially talking about. Tell us more, like, how did you know, and tell us, like, as much as you're comfortable, like what the dynamics were like.
So I have 2 older sisters, me, and then a younger brother. And I was just quiet, came in on time, did my thing, went to school, made no waves in the family whatsoever.
Which is the opposite of me, because I'm like, I'm calling all y'all motherfuckers out. Like, where are we starting at now? Where are we starting?
So I just went along with everybody. I didn't like confrontation, still don't, but don't like confrontation. Was just kind of just laid back and just took it all in and made no trouble for my parents.
But we should say this to Dr. Alex for context, is that when we're talking about like favorite children, my mom's mom was very clear about openly broadcasting who her favorite was.
But I was also very easily persuaded. I didn't really like have my own, as I do now at this age. I was easily, manipulated.
Barbara, if you know for sure, because you were told, that you were the favorite, is it possible that, in any given family, if there's willingness to display more of what one or both of the parents do like, either because it's who you are or because it's what you've learned works, and other, siblings are just either not aware to do that or just don't have as many commonalities, nearly as many, given, I don't know, various things, like I'm not even trying, right? Or having certain limitations in terms of mental health or something like that. And then also given like fatigue, right? Like the more kids there are, the youngest tends to like potentially have sometimes the least connection or the least kind of pulse on being able to display like similar things to what a parent would like or enjoy.
But Dr. Alex, I wonder, in some cases, are the children vying for the favorite spot? Is that something that they maybe subconsciously seek after, that they play favorite to the parent and kind of enable that kind of foundation?
I think it's a good question. I think it really depends on the coping style, the personality style of the child. Some would like try and appeal to what they think the parent wanted if they felt like that was a way of, feeling safer, even if it wasn't like real. And that can be seen as an adaptive quality. It can also be seen as adaptive if a child, instead of trying to appeal, totally tries to detach from the parent. It's riskier in some ways, right? Because children still need their parents, but it is certainly a way of dealing with feeling like you're not winning. My parent wants, or I don't have any commonalities, and it's hard for me to pretend, so I'm just going to totally detach. I think it's human nature in the beginning, like before personalities are really, really developed, be responsive to praise. So if any parent is like giving praise in a certain area, other siblings learn, oh, mom likes that. And like, I'm going to keep that in mind. And so maybe like later on, it's like I give up because mom's giving like her too much praise, not giving me enough. And even when I try, it doesn't seem to land in the same way. So screw this.
So, now you got a backstory a little bit about my mom's like upbringing, what she observed in her parents. Can that bleed into her being a parent, into her children?
Yes. Again, it can go one of two ways. It can be, oh my gosh, I've learned, I am so aware of what I experienced. Or there's another way of coping, which is not effective either, like necessarily, which is I was so hurt by it that I blocked it from being something that I'm as aware of. And therefore I might make some of the same mistakes because I'm not as aware.
I kind of want to play like a game and ask you like spitfire questions of like signs of like who you think like my mom's favorite, like who's she leaning more towards? Like, is there a way for you to pick that out of like if you ask a couple questions? I mean, granted, this is not going to be like a full session to be able to obtain all that information, right? But like, granted, I'm just curious of like, are there standout questions when you like meet with your patients that like you ask them like standard questions of like, hey, does your parent do this or does your parent do that? How can you spot out when you know that that a parent is favoring another child over another one? Like, how do you find those signs? What do you see that?
So here's a couple of questions that I think about. So Barbara, do you think that as a result of your own upbringing, you are more likely to be really thoughtful about how you parent your children?
Yes.
Leading question. It's a leading, right? Because like, I don't know anyone that would be like, no. But like, I think if you were like, I don't know, then it may make me wonder, are you even aware of like the impact, And so
I make it my conscious decision as a parent. My goal was always to make sure that I never put any wedge between them, that I always didn't show favoritism or didn't have that. So we would just be one whole unit instead of like the way my family was or something. We were all individuals, different kind of relationships with our parents, like just very chaotic. I want it like more of a closed.
So based on that, right, like we're already thinking both siblings, it might be harder to like say, okay, mom's the type to have like a favorite. So here's my next question though. Out of your two children, which of your children would be potentially more skeptical of like you being more questioning?
Paul.
And
that was, you didn't even have to finish that one.
And so that might suggest to me maybe that even though you try and keep the peace and be really thoughtful and equal, that maybe Paul is maybe more the voice of strong voice.
Reason.
Yeah. Or just like more likely to not necessarily want to keep the peace if there's some function that it serves towards more closeness or more genuineness or something like that.
I just think Paul is more open than my younger son. Paul's a talker. He wants to talk things out. He wants to sit and listen and do that. Yeah, my younger son is, would you agree, Paul? Like Brett.
Yeah, no, they'll get like upset with me because like when I'm mad, I'm like, I want to talk it out right here, right now, because I want to move on from it. I don't want to like have when I'm mad at somebody.
My younger son's like kind of like me, no confrontation. He just is like, I'm done. It's okay. It will just let's
So if we were to look at it just that way, if that is more the case, then like I'd imagine in certain key times, Barbara, like your younger kid was more appealing if you were really stressed or something. But also it can work both ways. Barbara, would you say, like, I don't want to lead the witness here, but like would you consider yourself somewhat open-minded and adaptable?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think so.
So you wouldn't necessarily be the type of parent to only want the same thing.
No.
She has 2 gay sons, so I was like, if that's not open-minded enough, I'm like, well, yeah.
And like I said, very, very different personalities. Like
So, then the definition of favorite changes maybe, because if you are actually open to being challenged in a way that at times Paul gives, and that actually is a little bit uncomfortable, but deep down there's potential benefit to the opposite of your style.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Then maybe it's not the favorite in the moment, but if there's awareness, to me, that feels like it grows into like a quality that is a favorite over time.
Yeah. So to sum that up, so for somebody who
to sum it up, Paul's saying, can you just then say he's the favorite? No.
To sum it up,
I feel like she's kind of agreeing with me in the sense when she's thinking of me, like that I do feel like I have that mutual thing with both of them. Yeah.
Well, I think not to get too semantic, but like, what does favorite mean?
Right.
If someone's a really like deep, aware person, favorite might not just be, I want exactly what is gonna be just like me, right? And some parents are like that, and then it's like feels like less healthy, right? There are times where it's actually helpful for you to have a different perspective that doesn't match on exactly with what you would typically default to. That can be seen as like something that really matters to you as a parent over time, in a way that's like favorite, but in a way that's unexpected.
So kind of what you're summing up saying is like, in this situation, is that a parent, i.e. we'll use my mom, for example, could be favoring one child over the other in terms of against resistance. So if they know that one child is more vocal, is going to hold her accountable, is going to kind of be upfront, she might then sway to the one that's maybe a little bit more passive and complacent, that's not going to challenge her on those things. So then you could sum that up as like a favorite.
Yeah, and it can depend on the situation. If it's like you're really stressed out and like you don't have the bandwidth, then yeah, you might be more likely to go to one child. But if there's any willingness, or because no one is like, please tell me what I need to hear, right? Like
exactly right. You know which one to go to what you need from them. Just like I feel like a child knows that they can go to their parent for something too. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But yes, I agree with that.
And if you're not willing to be challenged as a parent or like grow as a parent, like, you're going to pick that one all the time. And that that could look like a favorite, and maybe it is, but like, it's not necessarily the deeper relationship per se.
Yeah, no, because I know when I need like a hard conversation of something that I'm doing that's not a good thing in my life I should be doing, I definitely know Paul would be the one to be like, Mom,
I'm going to check her ass.
He's going to check me. You know what I mean? Or if I'm feeling down or something, I feel like in that sense, when I'm feeling down or something, I know I can go to both of them. My younger son will probably be a little bit more like, it's okay, we can have it. Paul will be like, okay. And then 5 minutes later, he'll be like, okay, so we're over it now. Like, you need to move on with it. We got it out. You're thinking crazy. Like, stop thinking that. Right?
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about me getting older and I was spiraling and stuff. And he was like, you're talking crazy. You know what I mean? He sympathized and he said, I get it. But then he was like, okay, so now you're just talking crazy. Like, stop talking that way. You're only this age. You have plenty to do, so.
Because then it kind of goes on this like merry-go-round that I feel like that's where I inherit that from. And that's not a healthy, that's not a healthy place to just be constantly going around. It's like, we're done. Let's move on from it.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, single parent, 2 parents, it's very possible for someone who is wanting to be as open and as a human as they can, but also as a parent, are more likely to have children that can be who they are. And that for that parent to be responsive to that, essentially, it sounds like you guys are healthiest, more or less like.
We'll take it.
As a result, I don't know that we can conclude that Paul is the favorite.
Yes, I love that.
I'm taking the invoice back.
I'm playing this on record.
Yeah. For somebody who's listening to this, or that might not be having an open conversation with literally a doctor like yourself on this matter, and then talking, openly with their parent. What are red flags that you think, like, I'm sure there's so many people who don't talk about this stuff, but could grow up to be resentful as a young kid? Are there telltale signs that you can see, like, that somebody would say, you know what, my mom or dad did do that? Like, what are the things that stand out to you?
Right, because it could be very hurtful, I would think, for a child as they get older and realize and are able to take it in, like, there's something there's something different. I am definitely treated different than another sibling or something, so I feel like that could really change a trajectory of someone's like personality or who they are or how they feel about themselves.
Yeah. I mean, even in situations where there's a perception of it, even though it's not really the case, it can be so painful. So
yeah,
I would say this, things to consider that could really be helpful would be if your child is kind of exhibiting only certain things towards you and there's more there, but they're only showing, defiance, or they're only showing like what they think, the parent wants, then you have to question, like, what are they picking up in the environment that's making them be one note, like either detached or defiant or like overly positive when like that's not necessarily fair? Is it because they have anxiety? Is it because they are really sensitive and they're picking up on things that aren't necessarily true? Mom got upset at this, so I have to really be careful. And it's like, no, so that's something to look out for. Or it could not be on the kid. It could be actually the parent is genuinely reinforcing that in a way that's like, why would they be any other way, right? And there's something really unhealthy about the demand of the parent and like what's getting the kid to survive. So that's like a huge piece.
I think like with my family, I think with that favoritism, I didn't know what it was or anything growing up. And then older, I feel like it totally put wedges with my siblings because, again, they'll make comments, well, you were always the favorite, or Barb didn't do anything. She was, that kind of thing.
And looking back, probably did it for good reason. There wasn't as much of like maybe an ability for them to notice that or something. In my case, my parents I thought they were playing favorites, and I learned later that they weren't. And I think the reason why is I was highly sensitive and anxious.
Join the club. That's why you're in good company here.
Yeah. And I would react in ways that were over the top to not being praised, or if I wasn't, like, my sister was being praised and there was nothing said directly after to me, I took that as I did something wrong, even though maybe she just did something great in that moment. There's families where it's the parent that's really unhealthy and driving this. Yeah.
What do you recommend for parents or, children and parents to like work through this? Like what, they see the signs, they feel that resentment that parent has a favorite and they want to work on it. Like what would you recommend? I mean, obviously therapy is a huge part, but that's also not everybody's willing to do that. So what do you recommend to get that conversation going?
Yeah.
Especially like when you're older and you want that connection with your siblings. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think if the child is able to be this cognitive at their age, what I would suggest is there's nothing better than to kind of go to another adult that they trust to get like a little bit of a perspective that's from outside, right? Like some kind of mentor, just like, let me run this by you. I think a lot of kids actually wouldn't know to do that, but I think that can be really helpful because an adult that is trusted might say, oh, I think you're actually maybe interpreting this in a certain way. And then it allows the child to question, okay, maybe I do need to kind of think about this in a different angle. Or that mentor person could say, oh, I know you're a parent. Like, this isn't cool. And like, I want to have a conversation with them. If it's a parent that's worried, that means that they're more likely to be healthy if they're noticing their kid, struggling with this. And then it's really about having conversations like, I just saw you shut down when this happened. Tell me about why, or tell me like what was the story that you played in your head about that, and then it's like the kid's like, well, you praised him yet again, and like I don't get any praise.
And a child who feels like that, do you feel that it would or could lead to a lot of destructive behavior on their part, the child's part?
If it's unchecked, yes, because if you think about it, right, it's that essentially is like emotion with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting though, sometimes it's acting out destructiveness, sometimes it's very subtle revenge seeking. So when I was a kid, I was anxious and sensitive. I created this story that like so much more of a favorite that my sister was than I. And instead of acting out, I would just seek revenge in small ways. And that would help me to regulate my emotions. So if my
What's your zodiac sign? Are you a Virgo?
I'm like a Cancer, but like close to Gemini. So I'm like 3 different people. I like.
Oh, that's my mom's a Gemini.
I'm a Gemini.
Yeah. But no, it's the way that I cope with stress and anxiety, for better or for worse, had always been like rigidity, fairness. This isn't fair, so I'm going to try and make it fair. And since I've obviously learned how to kind of cope in healthier ways, because first of all, what is fair? Like fair isn't always equal. And I didn't know that. So
I like that. Fair is not always equal.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think, there's always, like I said, I mean, for my situation, I think it's very much dependent on the subject matter, the emotion behind it, and what the person on the receiving end wants to hear, right? So I think that is definitely how that dynamic is. And I think everybody kind of plays a role, it's like you set certain people up to be this type of person when growing up, it's like I'm the one, if you want to know, if you're like, hey, I want to go to the moon, I'm going to help you get to the moon, but you got to be willing to hear how to get to the moon. And you might not like it, but you got to hear it, where, my brothers might just go along with it and not necessarily give you the tips to do it. And that might be the route you want to hear, so I think it just depends.
And the more siblings fall into like those tropes, the more like extreme it can become, because it's like, oh, well, Paul will handle it. That's his personality. It kind of doesn't always allow for the person to think, oh, well, I can implement some of that, how Paul does it too, if that's sometimes helpful, so.
Well, that's funny you said that, because my mom has said, when are you going to learn that is just your role of who you are? And she's right. It is just kind of who I am. But like what you're saying is that, you could get like step up and do X, Y, Z, like, if it means like putting things together or something like that. So that's funny that you just said that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can step out of your role, but I find that it's really hard not to step back into that role once you're in that family dynamic again. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Once you're in that role, right? You can't go out and come in. Like that is.
Yeah, you set the tone.
Yeah, you set the tone. That's the label.
Evolved in different ways, like in everyday life, but like the regression to whatever was going on as kids tends to kind of be the most powerful when you get back together.
Thank you for the work you do too.
I know, it's amazing.
And
we're so happy that you joined us today, Dr. Alex. Tell everybody where they can find you. I know she's back on Instagram. She's thriving. She's getting her groove back. I want people to be able to check you out.
You can find me on my website, hamlettherapy.com, and then my Facebook, Instagram, and X Twitter handles or Hamlet Therapy.
Love it.
Everybody
should check you out. Thank you so much for joining us. Seriously, you're the best.
Thank you for having me. Anytime. Just let me know.
We're doing a part 2, so we'll be able to follow back up. So.
Good.
Yes, episode part 2.
I'll let you know what I think, who's the favorite after this conversation that we had.
There will be more parts until I tell Paul he's the favorite.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah.
Say it.
That's it. So I'll just keep not saying it, and then I'll keep coming back and having fun with you guys.
That's why I set this up. So yeah, we'll have to do a part 2. Thank you, Dr. Alex. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Bye. Nice meeting you. You're not my favorite.
I know. All I know is you're going to be running with this, that you don't have a favorite. I'm still not. I'm like, listen,
That's great. She came around.
You worked your way out of that, but
she came around. She came around. She could not confirm or deny that I had a favorite.
she was going light on you. She was doing a little light work. That was amazing. I'm so happy that she was able to join us. Super
Pleasure meeting
informative.
her.
And it was really great to like hear, that maybe in some cases, like she said, favorite is subjective, but there are cases that are more severe than others. So
yeah, favorite in the moment.
Yeah, favorite in the moment, which, you've done a good job.
My moments can last a little longer on one than the other, but
yeah. We didn't push hard enough. Dr. Alex, where are you?
Paul didn't hear what he wanted to hear.
No, I was like, I actually thought she gave you a good edit. So I was like, it was accurate. So I was like, okay,
I agree.
You're a great mom. There's no question of that.
Thank you, sweetie.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to another episode. Please send us emails for topics. We want more topics. We want to hear what you guys want to hear at Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom podcast at gmail.com. Please follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all the social media platforms at Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us a review, get into it.
Leave us a story about what you think about the favorite child. If you have a story about being
I kind of want to hear what people think on these topics.
Me too.
If they agree, have they experienced something like that?
Yeah, I think that would be good to read a couple of letters or emails or something.
Yeah, next episode we should.
I don't know. That was old to me to say letters, wasn't it?
An email, a text. Barb said a carrier pigeon.
Send that letter in the mail.
They used the typewriter as they wrote it too. Well, I said you don't have your phone today to hang up.
I don't. So I can do this.
Okay, can we just talk about the phone that Barb had was my grandmom's? I think I've mentioned that before. That was like my grandfather's like emergency phone for his bathroom if he were to like fall to like call. And I'm like, Barb had that shit at her house for like a good couple of weeks, and we forgot. We were just doing it and really just got caught up.
Yeah.
And
then she texted me and
grandma called us and said, "You better run me that phone." So now we are shit out of luck and don't have it. So we're gonna have to make up a new
improvise.
One. There you go. So what is it? What is it? Say it. You gotta improvise it.
Time to hang up now. Bye.
Call you later.
Call you later. Oh, that's right. That's what I kept saying.
You don't even know it.
Oh yeah. Call you later. Bye.
See everybody next episode. Thanks for listening.
Bye, y'all. Love ya. Bye.